Smoke choked the sky as fire danced across shattered buildings. The ground was littered with broken machines and charred bodies. The war had come and gone, but what it left behind was worse than death itself. A man crawled from the wreckage of a destroyed dropship, blood on his face and ash in his mouth. His name was Yalan, a soldier, a survivor. But right now, just a man abandoned by his squad. His armor was cracked. His cums were dead, no reinforcements, no rescue beacon. Just silence, the kind that made your bones cold. He looked around. The battlefield stretched for miles, ruined and forgotten. And then, in the wreckage, something moved. Not a threat. Not a soldier, but a girl. She was unlike any human he had seen. She was an alien. Skin pale blue, eyes glowing faintly with silver light. Her long hair shimmered even in the dust. She was beautiful, fragile, but she wasn't dead. Not yet. Her body didn't respond. Paralyzed. Yalan checked her vitals, barely there. No pulse on normal scans. But her chest rose and fell with effort. She was alive in a way machines couldn't measure. He stared at her. She was strapped to a metal sled, the kind used to drag wounded off the field. Whoever left her here knew. She couldn't walk. They didn't care. She had been thrown away, just like him. Yalan could leave her. Walk away, save his strength. He didn't. He reached down, grabbed the sled's rope, and pulled. The metal scraped loudly against the rubble. His muscles burned, his shoulder bled. Still he dragged her through the ruins, looking for shelter. No one had told him why she was here. No one warned him what she was. But Yalan had seen too many left behind. He wouldn't let it happen again. Behind them, something stirred. In the distant ruins, shadows moved. Silent. Watching. Yalan didn't know yet that they weren't scavengers. They weren't after food or salvage. They were hunting her. He found a collapsed building with one standing wall. Enough to block wind. And keep a low fire. He pulled her into the corner, covered her with a thermal sheet, and crouched beside her. Night came fast. The temperature dropped. He wrapped his arms around her to keep her warm. Her skin was cold, like stone. But something in her still glowed. He didn't sleep. His eyes scanned the shadows. Every sound made his heart jump. He was a soldier, but this silence felt heavier than gunfire. In the dead of night, she stirred. Her lips moved. A whisper. No language he understood. But her fingers twitched. Her pulse changed, not much. Just enough to notice. She wasn't healing. Not in the way humans did. But the longer he stayed near her, the more stable she became. It was like his presence mattered. Like she needed protection to survive. He looked at her face, so peaceful, so strange. She wasn't just some alien. She was important. Her armor was high grade. Her rank badges weren't from any common unit. He touched a device on her collar. It blinked once. Then her eyes opened, just for a second. Glowing brighter than before. A single tear rolled down her cheek. But she didn't speak. He whispered gently, "You're safe now. I've got you." She didn't answer. But something in her breathing changed, slower, calmer, as if those words reached her somewhere deep inside. Yalan didn't know her name. He didn't know her people. He didn't know why she was left behind. But something in him already decided. He would get her out, or die trying. The morning brought no warmth. Only cold wind and gray skies moved above the ruins. Yalan's arms were sore from holding her through the night. His body ached, but he was alive. He looked at the alien girl again. Her eyes were closed, but her chest moved steadily. She looked peaceful, almost like she was dreaming. But her skin was still ice cold. He dug through his emergency pack. A half-broken heater coil, ration bars, 2 vials of med stims. No real help, not enough to heal her. But maybe enough to keep her going. Yalan placed the heater near her side and wrapped more. cloth around her legs. He whispered again. She didn't react. Still he kept speaking, like his words mattered more than silence. He needed answers. But there was no time to search the wreckage. Drones could spot him from the air. The enemy might still be nearby. This zone was marked red on all maps. He pulled out a broken datapad from his chest pocket. Smashed screen, fried circuits. Still, the memory chip inside blinked once. Maybe it held something useful about her. He tapped the interface and watched a flicker of information appear. A single record. Classified, locked behind alien code. He couldn't read it. But her face appeared in the holo. Name, unknown. Species, unknown. Status, classified asset. Transport, priority escort. Orders, do not abandon. The last line burned in his mind like fire through frost. She wasn't just a soldier. She was important. Maybe a key to something bigger. Maybe the reason. This entire sector turned to ash. And they had left her behind without a second thought. He looked at her again. Her face was soft, delicate, but her armor told another story. Battle-grade plates, energy-resistant padding. No civilian ever wore gear like that. He stood slowly. His muscles protested, but he forced himself up. He couldn't stay here, too exposed, no supplies, no escape route. He had to move her again. Gripping the sled rope, he began to drag her down the broken street. Each step echoed against the ruins. The sound reminded him he was not alone. Something was following. He stopped once. Listened. Footsteps in the rubble. Not his, not hers. Yalin turned quickly, drawing his sidearm. But the shadows were empty. Only silence answered his fear. He kept moving. The city's remains offered little shelter. Most buildings were hollow shells, burnt-out metal frames. But up ahead, he saw a collapsed tunnel entrance. It was risky. But it was also the only place out of sight. He pulled her inside, step by step. The air grew colder and dust filled his lungs. But at least they were hidden. Inside the tunnel, he set her down and lit a small flare. The red glow flickered against her face. She looked like a sleeping goddess, wounded but untouchable. Her lips moved again. A faint whisper. This time, Yalin leaned in. Her voice was soft, broken, in a language he didn't know. But it wasn't just sound. It carried feeling. His fingers brushed hers. Static crackled between them. For a second, her eyes opened. Just barely. But enough to show him she was still fighting to live. He sat beside her, holding her hand gently. "You're not alone," he said. "I won't let them take you again." Her fingers twitched like they heard him. Outside, the wind howled through the ruins, but inside something warmer stirred. Her body shimmered faintly. Her skin glowed softly in the red light, not dying. Reacting. Yalin didn't know how or why, but something in her was changing. Maybe his presence triggered it. Or maybe it was her way of surviving. By binding her will to his, whatever it was. He wasn't going to leave her. Not now. Not after seeing that spark of life behind her glowing eyes. Hours passed slowly inside the collapsed tunnel. Yalin checked his supplies again. The rations were low. The water even lower. He'd need to find something soon if either of them was going to survive. The alien girl hadn't moved again. Her glow had dimmed, but not vanished. Her breathing stayed steady. That was something. Enough to keep Yalin from losing hope. He scanned the walls around them. Some of the metal supports had fallen inward, but the tunnel still held. If it stayed stable for a little longer, they might be safe here until nightfall. Yalin stood and stretched. Every part of him felt tight. His back ached from dragging the sled. His legs shook from the lack of food. But the worst pain came from not knowing what she needed. He crouched beside her again. Her armor had strange ports and energy lines. Maybe some kind of built-in healing system. But if it needed power, it was dead now. He looked closer. One of the panels on her shoulder had a cracked energy cell. A broken connector sparked faintly. He reached into his gear for a universal patch lead. Clicking the lead in, he attached his backup cell to her suit. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a soft hum vibrated through her chest plate. The circuits flickered back to life. She gasped. Once, her eyes opened wide, just for a second, then closed again. But it was enough to make his heart race. Her body reacted to the energy. She needed more. His cell was limited. Barely enough to power a wrist pad, but it might buy her time, maybe minutes, maybe an hour. Whatever it gave her, it gave him purpose. He sat beside her again and leaned against the wall. His rifle rested. On his lap, the entrance to the tunnel was dark. Every so often, he saw movement. Distant, unclear. But there, they were still being hunted. Whoever wanted her gone hadn't given up. Maybe they had drones scanning for energy signals. Maybe they'd traced his heat trail. Yalin killed the power feed and covered them with broken metal sheets. It made the space tighter, but harder to detect. He knew how to disappear. The military had trained him for that, inside the dim space. He could hear her breathing, soft, calm, not labored anymore. It was strange how peaceful she looked, even on the edge of death. She shifted slightly. Her hand moved toward his, not fast. Barely a twitch, but it was different from before, not random. Not muscle spasms. It was like she reached out for him, Yalin. Took her hand gently. Her fingers were cold, but no longer lifeless. They had weight now, resistance. She wasn't just surviving, she was responding. A sound came from her lips, one word. Not human, but clear. He repeated it slowly, trying to match the sound. She blinked faintly, as if she understood. He said it again. Louder, her head tilted toward him slightly. Her eyes didn't open, but her face softened. It was as if hearing her own word gave her strength. He didn't know what it meant. But he would say it 100 times if it helped her stay alive. He said it again, this time with a soft smile on his lips. A flicker of blue light passed under her skin. Her chest glowed faintly, as if her body was remembering what it meant to function. As if the protection of another had triggered something deep inside. Yalin didn't understand her species. He didn't understand her technology. But something about her healing pattern was tied to presence. To being guarded, watched, defended. It was like she was built to recover only when someone refused to give up on her. Not because of machines. Not because of time. But because of connection. He held her hand tighter and leaned back into the wall. He knew this was far from over, but he also knew she wasn't lost. Not yet. Not while he still breathed beside her. Asterisk hours passed. The low, red light of the flare burned weaker. Yalin watched it closely, knowing that soon they'd be in total darkness. He didn't mind for himself, but she needed light. Warmth, life. He checked the power cell again. Barely a charge left. He couldn't waste it, not unless she started fading again. His fingers hovered over the connector. He waited, watching her chest rise and fall. Her skin glowed faintly now. Not bright, but steady. The color had shifted. A soft pulse of green mixed with the blue. It didn't look like a wound anymore. It looked like change. Yalin whispered to her. Slow. Calm. He told her stories. Nothing important. Just noise to break the silence. He told her about Earth. About wind. About music. About how rain used to smell. Her eyes didn't open. But her lips twitched when he spoke. It wasn't much. But it was more than nothing. He held on to every sign like it was gold. Outside, something cracked. Metal snapping under weight. Yalin froze. He reached for his rifle and killed the flare. Darkness swallowed the space like a beast. Footsteps. 2, maybe 3. Slow, heavy, not human, not animal. Something wore armor, something scanning for heat or movement. Something that wasn't here to help. He held his breath. The girl was silent. 2. Not even a breath reached his ears. Then a red laser dot flickered across the wall above them, then vanished. Then returned. Then moved on. Yalan didn't move until the noise faded. 10 minutes, maybe more. His fingers trembled slightly. But he never loosened his grip on the rifle. He had been hunted before. But never while protecting someone else. When he finally lit another flare, the girl's face looked calmer than before. Her hand rested on his leg. He hadn't felt it happen. But there it was. Gentle, trusting, alive. He looked at her and whispered again. We made it through another one. She didn't answer, but he saw her pulse flicker faster. Like a heart-catching rhythm again, Yalan knew he had to move. This tunnel wouldn't stay hidden forever. Sooner or later, the hunters would come back. They had to find another place. Somewhere safer. Somewhere deeper. He pulled the sled forward. It scraped loudly at first, but then quieted as he adjusted the cloth beneath. The girl didn't flinch. Her breathing stayed even. He took that as a good sign. The deeper they went, the colder it got. His breath formed white mist in the air. He wrapped his jacket tighter and checked her armor again. The inner lining seemed active. Still faint, but functioning. They passed. Old support beams, signs written in human script. This tunnel had been part of something long ago. Maybe a station. Maybe a bunker. Maybe a mine. Now it was just survival. Yalan spotted a small chamber ahead. A round space with old crates and broken lights. He moved in slowly, scanning for threats. None. Just quiet and dust and empty echoes. He pulled her inside and began building a barrier from scrap metal. Nothing strong, but enough to hide them from scanners or patrols. Enough to rest for a few more hours. Once the space was secure, he fed her another small charge from the power cell. Her armor hummed again. The glow under her skin returned, this time brighter. Her eyes opened halfway. She looked at him, really looked. Her lips moved. No sound came out, but her eyes filled with emotion. Not fear, not pain, something warmer. Something full of meaning. Yalan leaned closer. It's okay, you're safe, I'm with you. Her fingers curled around his wrist. Weak, but real. It felt like the start of something stronger. Her chest lit up in soft waves of light. Green and blue pulsed through her veins. Her body responded faster, as if it recognized him not as a stranger, but as protection. Yalan didn't understand the science. Didn't need to. What he saw was enough. She was healing, slowly, but surely. And the only reason was because he stayed. Yalan sat quietly beside her, watching the gentle rhythm of her glowing pulse. Her skin shimmered like moonlight in the shadows. She was no longer a dying figure on a sled. She was becoming something more. He had no idea what her species called themselves. Her language was foreign, but her emotions were not. He saw the fear fading from her face. In its place, something softer began to grow. She blinked slowly. Her gaze locked on his face with intent. Her lips parted again. A word slipped out, foreign, musical, and soft. He repeated it back to her without hesitation. Her eyes glowed a little brighter. That word meant something. Maybe a name. Maybe a question. But her eyes held no confusion. Only gratitude. Only hope. Yalan reached into his jacket and pulled out the last energy stick. He cracked it open and offered it to her. She didn't move. Her muscles were still weak. But she tried. He held it to her lips gently. She took a tiny sip. Her throat moved slowly. It wasn't much, but it showed effort. He smiled at her and nodded in encouragement. The glow in her veins pulsed stronger. It ran from her chest to her arms, her hands, her fingertips. She was healing, not like a human. Not in parts, but as a whole system waking up. Yalan sat back and stretched his arms. His body still ached from exhaustion. He hadn't slept properly in 2 days. But his mind felt sharp, focused, driven by her progress. Suddenly the tunnel trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. Yalan stood and grabbed his rifle. A low vibration rolled through the ground. Not natural, mechanical, heavy. He moved to the tunnel edge and listened. The sound grew louder. Thumping boots. Robotic legs, scanners. They were sweeping again. Closer this time. More organized. Yalan dragged a heavy pipe across the entrance to block the light. He powered down the flare. Silence returned. His breath slowed. He didn't move. Neither did she. A soft whine buzzed through the chamber. A scout drone passed. Overhead, its red light scanned through gaps in the debris. Yalan held his position, rifle raised but still. The red beam flicked near his boot, paused, then moved on. The drone hovered for a moment, then shot forward through the tunnel. Yalan stayed still until the sound faded. When he turned back, she was watching him, eyes wide, lips trembling. She had seen everything, understood the danger. And yet, she didn't look afraid. She looked angry. Her hand reached for him again, not just in weakness, with intent. She grabbed his wrist and squeezed. Her strength was returning, bit by bit. And it was tied to him. She whispered another word. Stronger this time, repeated it twice. Her voice still cracked, but clearer now. He said it back. Her pulse quickened. Her skin shimmered brighter. He knew then it wasn't just her healing. It was her power. Her ability to recover, to activate, to survive was linked to something emotional. Something sacred. She needed someone to stay, to protect, to believe she was worth saving. It wasn't just biology. It was deeper. A survival design built on bond and presence. Yalan gripped her hand tightly. "I'm not leaving," he said, "no matter what comes." Her head tilted slightly. Her lips curved into the faintest smile he'd seen yet. The moment didn't last long. Another vibration rocked the floor. He grabbed her sled and began pulling again, deeper into the tunnel, toward whatever safety still existed below. As they moved, she whispered more words, slowly, one at a time, like teaching a child her language. And Yalan listened to every sound as if his life depended on it. Each word seemed to lift her a little more. Her glow spread from her limbs to her face. Her body looked less fragile now. Her presence filled the space with strength. Yalan realized then she wasn't just recovering, she was awakening, becoming what she once was. And with each step he took, he brought her closer to that hidden power, asterisk. The deeper they moved into the tunnel, the more. The sounds from above faded. The silence grew heavier. The air was cooler now, tinged with metal and dust. But Yalan felt safer in the dark than under enemy eyes. He stopped to catch his breath. The sled had grown heavier. Not because of the terrain, but because the girl was no longer just a passenger. Her weight shifted as her muscles regained control. Her fingers moved more often now. She pulled the blanket tighter around herself. Yalan watched her, amazed by how fast she was recovering without medicine or machines. She looked up at him with soft, glowing eyes. She still couldn't speak in full sentences, but she didn't need to. Her gaze said everything. She trusted him completely. Yalan rested against the wall and checked his weapon. One clip left. No grenades. One flare. He'd faced worse odds before, but never while protecting someone like her. She reached toward his rifle. Not to take it, but to touch the barrel gently. Her fingers glowed against the metal. Then the light traveled up the weapon and vanished into the air. He blinked in confusion. She pulled her hand back and closed her eyes for a moment. Then she whispered one word, "Marka." He repeated it, unsure of its meaning. She nodded once. They kept moving until the tunnel opened into a wider space. The walls were lined with broken tech and old crates. Yalan found a collapsed control panel and brushed off the dust. He tapped a few buttons, hoping something still worked. The screen flickered, then dimmed. But it gave just enough light to see the space better. They were in an old transit hub. Signs in human and alien scripts marked directions to sectors and lifts. Most of the paths were collapsed or sealed. But one shaft showed green, still accessible, still powered. He checked the map and found an emergency shelter listed near the lower levels. It was a risk, but staying still was more dangerous. He pulled her sled toward the platform. The lift controls were cracked but functional. As the doors closed, she looked around the walls, eyes scanning the old symbols like they were familiar. She whispered 3 more words, names, places, or warnings. Yalan memorized them without question. If they mattered to her, they mattered. To him, she had led him this far with only glances and broken words. That was enough. The lift groaned as it moved. Sparks flickered from the ceiling. He kept his weapon ready, eyes on the floor numbers. Every second stretched like an hour. Then the doors slid open. They entered a smaller room with reinforced walls. Empty. Safe. Yalan kicked debris aside and cleared a space for her. He laid her down gently. She sat up halfway, her body trembling but stronger. She pointed to a console. In the corner, he approached and powered it on. A light scanned his face, then hers. The screen flashed green. The room lit up. Warmth returned. The shelter responded to her presence. Not to him, she had clearance here. Whoever she was, this place knew her. Maybe she had been here before. Maybe it was built for her. She stood slowly, on her own. Her legs shook but held. Firm, Yalan stepped forward to catch her if she fell. But she waved him back gently and took another step forward. Her glow increased, running along her arms, legs, and spine. The markings on her armor came alive. Symbols lit up across her chest and shoulders. She was activating. Yalan stared, unsure if he should be worried, but her eyes met his with calm strength. Then she raised one hand toward him. The room's systems powered higher. Lights turned white. Her voice came stronger now, still accented, but clear. You protect. I heal. Yalan blinked. It was the first full sentence she had spoken. And it felt like a vow. She stepped closer, her fingers brushing his chest. Now we protect. Not just herself, not just him, but whatever lay ahead. The room pulsed with light as systems came back to life. Old machines whirred softly. Panels blinked in soft green and blue. It was like the place had been waiting for her return. Yalan stood beside her, eyes locked on her glowing figure. She no longer looked helpless. Her movements were slower than normal, but steady, confident. Her breathing was strong. Her back straight. She walked to the central console and placed her hand on the scanner. The wall opened with a hiss. Inside was a long metal case. She looked at it with quiet focus before opening it. Yalan stepped closer. Inside was a weapon. Sleek, alien, and humming with power. Not large, but clearly advanced. She picked it up and held it like it belonged to her. Like she remembered everything. She looked at him and pointed toward the outer hallway. They come, she said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned with fire. Yalan didn't ask how she knew. He simply nodded. He checked his rifle. One last magazine, not much. He looked at her again and felt something shift. This wasn't about escape anymore. It was about facing what hunted them. The floor shook. Not like before. Heavier. Closer. The enemy was descending. They were coming into the lower levels, searching, tracing energy, scanning for life. She placed one hand on his chest. A soft light passed from her fingers to his armor. His HUD blinked. New data streamed across the screen. Shields increased, sensors boosted. She had upgraded his gear. He blinked in surprise. What did you just do? She answered with a single word. Link. He didn't need more. She had connected to him, physically, technologically, maybe even emotionally. They moved through the hallway side by side. Her steps were quiet but precise. Yalin followed her lead, trusting her senses. She stopped near a side wall and held her hand to it. A door slid open, revealing a maintenance tunnel, just wide enough for one person at a time. She gestured for him to enter. He hesitated, then stepped in. She followed close behind. The tunnel curved and narrowed. Pipes dripped with condensation. The walls buzzed with old energy. Yalin scanned ahead. His HUD showed movement near the top level. Red markers. Armed hostiles. She tapped the wall once. Lights dimmed automatically. Her body glowed brighter in the dark, but it wasn't a target anymore. It was a guide. She moved like she knew every path. At the tunnel's end, they reached a sealed door. She placed her hand against it and whispered something in her language. The door opened with a deep click. Beyond it was a control station. Screens lit up with static, then data. Footage of the facility, maps, heat signatures, enemy movement. She pointed at the center of the display. Main breach in 10 minutes, she said. Yalin nodded and adjusted his weapon. Then we meet them here, he said. She turned to him, face steady. Together, she replied. Then she powered up her weapon with a sharp twist of her wrist. He watched her for a moment longer. She wasn't just healing anymore. She was reclaiming who she was. Whoever left her behind hadn't expected her to rise again. The room trembled as another explosion echoed through the structure. They both turned toward the door. The countdown had begun. The final confrontation was near. She stepped forward and extended her hand. Not as a wounded stranger, but as an equal, as a warrior. Yalin took her hand and gave a slight nod. He understood what this meant. Whatever came through that door, they would face it side by side. No backup, no command orders. Just a human and an alien, united by choice and survival. Asterisk, the lights above the blast door flickered red. Warning alarms hummed through the structure. Dust fell from the ceiling as footsteps pounded toward their position. Yalin checked his rifle again. Fully loaded. Safety off. His heart beat steady. He didn't flinch. Not anymore. He wasn't alone. He wasn't abandoned. She stood beside him, her glowing armor alive with energy. Her eyes burned silver blue. Her weapon pulsed with light, synths to her heartbeat. Every breath she took made the air feel charged. They took position behind the barricades, metal crates, broken panels. Anything that could stop a bullet or slow an intruder. The room became a battlefield before the fight even began. The door blew open. Heat and smoke poured through. Shapes rushed in. Armored. Armed. The enemy had arrived. Their weapons fired without warning. Yalin moved first. A burst of fire dropped the front line. He ducked behind cover, reloaded, and fired again. His shots were precise. Years of training kicked in. She moved with fluid grace. Her weapon unleashed energy bolts that danced through the air like lightning. Each hit dropped another target. She never missed. Her movements were pure instinct. The battle raged for minutes that felt like hours. Walls shook, sparks flew, blood spilled. But they held their ground, not just with weapons. With something deeper, unity. Yalin took a hit to the shoulder. He dropped, gritting his teeth. She was beside him instantly. Her hand glowed bright. She touched his armor. The pain faded. The bleeding stopped. He stared in disbelief. She had shared her energy with him. Not a machine, not a drug. Her body healed his through some force he couldn't name. She nodded once and turned back to the fight. The second wave entered. Heavier units, shields, drones. But they were ready. Yalin used the station's power conduits, overloading panels to trigger shockwaves. She guided the flow of energy through the floor. her weapon turned red hot, firing wide bursts that tore through enemy ranks. It wasn't just defense anymore. It was dominance. One drone broke through the left side and charged at her. Yalin leaped in front of her and took it down with a point-blank shot. She looked at him with wide eyes, then smiled with pride. Together, they pushed forward. Room by room, hall by hall, clearing the facility of every hostile. The system recorded every movement, every signature, every victory. By the time the last enemy dropped, the station was silent again. No alarms, no shots. Just heavy breathing and the smell of smoke and steel. Yalin leaned against the wall and looked at her. Her armor was cracked. Her hands trembled. But her face was calm. She had survived the impossible. And so had he. She walked to the main console and entered a code. The screen changed to a broadcast mode. She looked at Yalin and then activated the signal. Her language flowed through the speakers, soft but strong. Then she repeated the message in rough English. We survived. We protect. We do not run. Come. If you dare, Yalin chuckled. I think that'll get their attention. She smirked and sat beside him. Her hand reached for his. Not as a gesture of weakness, but as recognition, of trust, of bond. He looked at her glowing eyes and felt something strange in his chest. It wasn't just relief. It was something heavier, something warm, something earned through pain and fire. Outside the station, the sky began to change. Distant ships hovered, scanning, waiting. But now they weren't hunting a dying girl and a lost soldier. They were facing something else entirely. Yalin stood beside her, not as her guard, not as her savior, but as her equal. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Human and alien, bound not by blood, but by choice.